Hi, my name is Winsley, and welcome to my Xenoplague Doctrine tier list. At the beginning of April, I posted my complete Doctrine tier list, which looks like this. And today I'm going to be going into why I placed each Xenoplague Doctrine where I did. While I expect that future expansions and patches will change how good some of these doctrines are and add a few others, the doctrines kept the values that they had when the game first launched it up until the Tyrannosaurus patch, so for about 9 months. And I expect that these numbers will stay the same for a while now. Even if they do change soon, I think that these tier lists that I've put together will remain useful, especially to new players who just kind of want to get a good idea as to what's a good doctrine and when you should be thinking about implementing certain ones. There are 97 doctrines that I could find in the game, and while I'd love to talk about them all in this one video, I decided to break them up into smaller, more digestible segments. Alright, so we're going to start with the Biomatter Preparation Training Doctrine all the way down in the B tier. As much as I would have liked to have ranked it higher up in my tier list, I think because all by itself it's not that valuable. It deserves to be down in the B tier, but if you do invest enough into spawning pustules and evolving them into the higher tier units, then this becomes quite competitive. It's just that all by itself, its value is questionable, and I could see by the time you're getting into the late game, you don't need to spawn in a couple more units or evolve a couple more. You could be getting more value out of another doctrine. But this is one that I actually have less experience with, and one that I think is pretty hard to wrap your head around, just because of the nature of how spawning units and evolving units works. To actually look at the values associated with this doctrine, we're just going to hop on over to the game like so, and then I'm going to search it in the Imperial Archives. So we're looking for Biomatter Preparation. It increases the chances of spawning a unit or involving a unit by 30%. I know that there is a tracker in the game which keeps track of the number of biological units that have died with an infection, and I think once you get past 10 without this, then you will get a new pustule, and I think with this discount that means that you only need to kill 7 units to get a pustule to spawn in. I'm actually not very certain about how evolving works. It's something that I want to actually explore in a future beginner's guide video that I've been doing on the channel since like the game launched back in August. Yeah, I've been doing like these weekly things, and I think this would be a really good subject to dive into, but it just seems really hard to test for and to test accurately for. But essentially, I think once you get to like 14 or so points in a battle, if you kill enough units off in a battle, then it can evolve one of your pustules into, I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but I can just look it up here. It will evolve into one of these things, the Destroyer, and then the Destroyer can evolve into this thing, which is very nice, very nice. Now, I think it's time to compare this doctrine to the doctrines that are around it, and to do that, we're just going to pull up the complete tier list very quickly, and you'll see that it's at the very bottom of the B tier, or the very end of the B tier. It's next to, I think that's Cosmite Collection, and then the first doctrine in the C tier is a landmark one. I think that's the Spaceport one. So yeah, let's just try and find those in the Imperial Archives really quickly. We've got Cosmite Collection right here. Nope, it misspelled Cosmite. It's got no E, doesn't it? Like that. So this increases how much Cosmite you get by 20%. I'm sure that you could argue that Biomatter Preparation will give you more value, but I think the guaranteed extra Cosmite income is more valuable, at least by itself. I'm sure, like I said earlier, if you invest enough in synergizing with the Biomatter Preparation training, that it would be better than this. But initially, yeah, this is better than that. Now, Let's look up the spaceport one. I forget what it does off the top of my head, but I think it's pretty good. So this one makes tactical operations 30% cheaper, and in addition, tactical operations can be deployed in the first turn of combat. I think if it was easier to unlock this, I would have actually moved it up a little bit further in the tier list, because 30% reduction in tactical operations is massive. But the thing is, even once you've unlocked that, I believe you have to defend the location that it came from in order to use that. So yeah, the amount of value you get out of this is arguable, and you'll be getting it probably pretty late in the game when you've got enough energy to cast tactical operations left, right, and center. I think the reduction in operations casting points is what makes that one Empire quest so valuable. I think it's called Technologist. This is just making the energy stuff cheaper. So yeah, I think if it had reduced the tactical operations points, this would be much, much, much better than Xenoplague preparation training. Yeah, let me just pull up Technologist really quickly, because yeah, it just says everything's 15% cheaper to use, and I believe that means that you can get a little discount on the tactical operations points, and also the +2 tactical operations points there. That's pretty valuable all by itself. Now I think we're ready to jump into our next doctrine, which is organic mutation research. Let's pull that up in game because I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I think it's pretty good. Organic mutation research. I mean, it can't be that good. It's pretty far down here on the list. So this can increase your research income by 20%. I think that it's not that great because I usually get my research elsewhere. You don't have to get it from your colonies. You can get them from the anomaly sites or even from raising enemy settlements now. So there's other ways to get research, and getting plus 20% research for a doctrine slot and 200 energy is it's a big trade to make, and you only really want to be doing that if you're making all of your research in your colonies. I just don't see that being very, very helpful unless you invest very heavily in the synergy, and then even then it's not that competitive. But I could be wrong about that. Let's compare it to what we have on the left and right of the doctrine on the tier list. And yeah, we do have to just pull this up really quickly because I haven't memorized it. And I think that I found it. Yes, it's near the bottom, near the end on the bottom half of the C tier. It's after a, I think that's, is that Void Tech? I think that's Void Tech or Assembly thing, and then it's like before the Forgotten NPC Doctrine. So let's try and find the blue one first. I think that's Quantum something rather. It's probably Quantum Project or Quantum Tapping. Project. Yes, this gives you plus 15 research in every colony that has a research sector to it, or for every research sector it gets plus 15. So you do have to have some research in order to get any value out of this doctrine, and just isn't a percentage. So it's easier to get that research going in places that don't have lots and lots of research sectors. So I could see this one being slightly better than the other one, but they're pretty similar. They both cost 200 energy and they give you a little bit of research. But let's see, you'd have to have like 12 research sectors to have this really make any sense, I think. No, that's not true. You need to have, because that would make you like 200 research in a turn. You need to have at least 4 or 5 for this to be a valuable investment. and I just don't see myself going for that on my colony sectors. I typically will put energy there so I can support large armies, or production so I can build large armies. Research is a very low priority for me. So let's try and find the forgotten thing. Something tells me it has something similar to those. Yes, so each knowledge sector now provides an additional 10 research. It costs half what the other ones did, but it doesn't provide a lot of value. It still takes up a whole doctrine slot. So yeah, I understand why I put this one here. It's just not quite as good as maybe the quantum tapping, because it's giving you plus 10 instead of plus 15 for every knowledge sector or research sector that you have. So yeah, I think we're now ready to move on to our next doctrine in the Xenoplague list. That is forced mutation, and it's another one that I don't know off the top of my head. I think I know biomatter scavenging, but we'll have to look that one up just to check it. So forced mutation, what does that do? Forced mutation. Didn't I just look you up? Oh, did I? Well, that's interesting. I don't think this doctrine is ever called forced mutation, but I wrote it down as forced mutation because I guess it was right next to organic mutation research. They're just very similar. This one is actually called forced infection, and it will I just looked it up. That's actually pulled up like we had the other ones. It will make it easier for you to get more pustules, you know, pretty similar to the other one above it in the B tier. Yeah, so it says losing in a units in a battle while this doctrine is active will contribute to spawning Xenoplague pustules and evolving other Xenoplague units at the end of combat. So it's no longer just enemy units that contribute to that that counter that will spawn in units or evolve units. It's now your friendly ones, which honestly you shouldn't be losing units if you can afford to do so. Losing units means that you're losing the experience on them, and units are just better when they get the prime rank. So I don't like this one. I could see it being okay. Obviously, if you're not going to be reloading or anything, and you're going to probably be losing units if you're doing a multiplayer or something like that, then this has more value in that kind of setting. But if you're just trying to learn the game or master it, I don't think this is something that I would recommend to new players. Now let's double check what we have next to it on my completed tier list, which is here, and it looks like it's right behind the doctrine that we looked at a second ago, the Forgotten Depths one to the left, and to the right of it is an Empire quest, which I don't know off the top of my head. So let's try and find the little like praying hands in this tab over here. So that's Harbinger. Harbinger is it makes Doomsday structures and operations a little bit cheaper to use. Certain secret texts have much better Doomsday operations than others, so that could be better for your secret tech than it would be for another player. But this is really only useful if you have the Doomsday Victory enacted. Actually, you know what? It's arguable because the Heritor have a really nice Doomsday operation, and even if you're just going for like conquering the map, using those Doomsday structures could make it a little bit easier to do. But do you really need to spend a doctrine slot on making them cheaper to build and operations cheaper to use? I would argue that that's maybe not the best use of a doctrine slot. If you are going to use it, only use it for a handful of turns to get those Doomsday structures up and running, and maybe to use a couple operations. But all in all, I think that it's not really worth the investment, and it takes a while to actually unlock it in the Empire quests because you have to unlock previous things to get to here, and then the conditions for Harbinger itself are pretty high. I think actually it said it up here, didn't it? Does it say what you need? Yeah, you need to build a doomsday structure in one of your colonies and launch a doomsday operation. By the time you have that going a little bit, it shouldn't be that hard to get more. But I don't know. I could see there being some value in that if you wanted to make the argument for it. Now, the last one on our list is Biomatter Scavenging, which I think gives you HP when you fight enemy units, when you defeat enemy units. Let's pull up what Biomatter Scavenging does. So this one, yeah, after a victorious battle, units in Xenoplague armies heal for 5 HP per biological or cyborg unit killed. 5 HP is so negligible. It's very easy to heal up your units without those little passive heals like this. You only have like 40 HP in most of your tier 1 units at the beginning of the game, and they'll probably heal up to that limit relatively quickly. And the bigger tier units that have like 80 HP or 85 HP, 5 HP per turn, per battle rather, it's pretty negligible. It's pretty minor. It's barely going to make a difference in most battles. So yeah, I think it makes sense to put this all so far down in my tier list. Now, what do we have next to it? We have Siren's Canticle and another Empire quest. I think Simon's Canticle is pretty terrible, so the fact that this is after that is, oof, it's not great. So yeah, that one is Siren's Canticle. It gives you a little bit more HP in your colonies, but it's very, very minor. I wouldn't use a whole Doctrine slot, and just basically 6 more happiness in all my colonies, and friendly units get a little bit more morale. Now, the last thing we're going to look at was, I think it was Operator. So this says that covert and strategic operations are now 25% cheaper. I don't really use covert operations, so I could see this actually synergizing really, really well with that strategy. But for me, not really worth it. Strategic operations, by the time I'm ready to start using them, I generally have enough energy that I don't need that reduction in cost. And you have to keep in mind that you're spending 50 energy here on this doctrine to get 25% cost on all future strategic operations. So if you're going to drop this doctrine, you better get the value out of that. You better save at least 50 energy on your strategic operations or your covert operations, which I'm sure isn't too hard to do, but you're using a whole doctrine slot to do it too. So I don't know, seems arguably pretty awful. And that's everything I wanted to say on this tier list. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you around. Have a good one.